What's going on, guys? This is Random Rabbit. Welcome to the show. This is our daily podcast number 16. We're here bringing you all the latest and greatest. We're here with Random Rabbit Wyatt, Random Rabbit Jeremy. Welcome, guys.
Hello, guys.
And today we're just going to be hitting it hard. There's a few items that popped up on the news. We're definitely going to be hitting some politics and some other areas that are being affected. If you're going to be watching the show, get ready. At the very end, we're going to be talking about UFOs and exactly what the Pentagon's take was. I know everybody, the news came out last week, but it was so melodramatic that I don't even think anybody really cared. It's not like they're saying like, yo, they exist. And so find out later on. We'll be talking about near the end of the show. And that's gonna be exciting. I definitely have a lot to say, especially because since then there's been a lot of videos popping up, but more on that later. We're also going to be talking about some metaverses, the Ethereum Music Festival that's coming out. But to start us off, Random Rabbit Wyatt, take it away.
Yes. All right. Hello, everybody. So the first topic today is the same ransomware hackers that hit JBS meatpacking plant unleashed an attack on this company, Kaseya Limited's VSA software, which is used by many tech companies to help control computer management services. So in effect, what they did was they were able to basically hack into one company and then gain a bunch of other endpoints through other clients by going through this software. They boasted about 1 million were hit. They started at 400,000, then went to 1 million. That nobody really believes that they've hit 1 million systems. They're asking for $70 million, and when this is received, they will release a universal decryptor, quote unquote, that will unlock all the systems that have been affected by the software. And there's even options for people to pay if someone doesn't come forward with the 70 million. There are, depending on the size of the company that was hit, you can pay like up to 25 grand or 100 grand of worth of I believe it is of some crypto to pay it back. I think it's in Bitcoin, but it might be something different. And you can pay separately. You don't have to wait for somebody to pay off the whole thing. And the exploit that was used was actually known about at the company. They were actually fixing it during the time of this attack, so it was kind of something they had already realized. They just didn't fix it in time, which I believe they have fixed it or are in the process of almost finishing to fix it. And they say that most of the companies were small to medium size, so there wasn't any critical infrastructure hit that they can tell at this time. And the White House is currently looking into how if Russia is somehow involved, because this is the same hacker group that's believed to be acting on U.S. soil. And as we know, Joe Biden had a conversation with Putin, gave him a list of things that were off limits for him to attack, and said that the U.S. would retaliate if there were any attacks from cyber groups that were linked to Russia. So we'll see how that goes. We'll see how the analysis goes going forward. But a bunch of industry group professionals don't expect them to be receiving the full 70 million, if at all. So we'll have to see how that kind of works its way through, and how that gets solved. But just very interesting. It's interesting. This is the biggest recorded, I think, attack so far in the crypto space when it comes to a ransomware attack.
Yeah, that sounds
Biggest
intense. Cybersecurity teams must be working overtime right now to make sure that they don't have to pay a dime. But let me tell you, they're getting paid well, or else the 70 million is just. Do we know if they're gonna black hole that information? Is there a timeline on that?
No, but they say they don't like to make a lot of noise. This group are evil, where the R and the E are capitalized. They said as a report to an intermediary that they don't require lots of noise. They don't need to be a big huge attacks. They just want money. But they've also said that they're here to stay. They do plan on attacking and apparently they plan on targeting more U.S. infrastructure. They plan on staying around. So some people have taken this as a sign that these type of actors are going to still be in here, and that this is a threat that cybersecurity is taking more seriously, and all companies should to protect their assets and their data, as I've said before, because cyber criminals are definitely evolving in a different path than normal cybersecurity. So cybersecurity ETFs might be a good play.
I remember a company I worked for, we kept saying, stop clicking the fishy emails. If you don't know where it's from, don't click it. They're right there like, oh no, I clicked it. I'm locked out of my email. Dude, they're everywhere. they will find you, and they'll try to find any which way to get into that system network. So,
and I feel like we should also point out, if you're at work and you're questioning any email, go to your IT department, call someone. They are more than happy to inspect the email. There's tools that they have that they're able to, inspect whether it's infected, whether it's going to be malicious. Ask. Don't just assume that, oh yeah, this is safe. Oh yeah, this sounds like someone I'd know. No, right now, anybody and everybody's a target. They know who your bosses are. They know the names. They know exactly who's in charge of you, and they're very smart at this. This isn't just regular. They're not going after. I want to say like maybe. Well, I was going to say like naive people, but they are going after naive people.
They're going after the older groups. They're seniors.
That's what I was trying not to say.
Moira, and they know you're from like born in the early 1900s. They're going to get you.
I wasn't trying to categorize the older age group only because like it's really not exclusive to them. It's really anybody and everybody. There's been people who are like, oh yeah, I was ready to buy, the gift cards for my boss that he requested because, I'm going to follow exactly what it does. And luckily I made the phone call and only found out that, hey, he actually didn't request those gift cards. I was about to get hacked. And so these guys are smart. They're getting smarter. And I mean, I remember the other day we also talked about how they're using your computer to mine and make, Bitcoin from it. So if they're able to do that, they're definitely able to do a lot more dangerous things. And these encryptions, they're very difficult to crack. And I remember reading about one guy who's able to crack them, but I mean, he's only gone through, maybe a dozen or so or more, but there's hundreds, and he can't crack them all. And so right now I see these guys winning, but there will be competitors who will come up against these cyber criminals, and there's heroes. Heroes will be born. All right, what were you going to say?
White hat hackers. White hat hackers. No, that's good.
That's what you want. You want ethical hackers.
You do.
Okay. So, Bitcoin fraud concerns.
Universe. Oh.
What?
Crypto universe.
Well, okay. Well, regulators are looking for more control over the expanded crypto universe. That means universe of assets, so a collection of assets. So by a universe of any.
I saw where you're going with that, Jay.
I wanted a universe.
We will be talking about the crypto universe, metaverses, in a couple minutes. Definitely hold on to your socks.
I mean, if we're talking portfolio theory, then we all know what a universe is.
Right, a universe of assets. So we're discussing. So the regulators are just looking more into how they want to and what they can do to regulate the crypto markets, because there is no single regulator to inspect crypto exchanges and brokers, unlike securities and derivatives markets. And really the only time any regulators step into these markets is when something happens or the regulatory action needs to be taken because of a faulty transaction or some kind of fraudulent behavior specifically that violates a U.S. law that already exists. And some of the fears that there is, obviously, and it kind of goes hand in hand with what people want cryptocurrencies to be, but at the same time it shows the other side, that there could be a shadow financial system developing, right, which is something that exists behind the scenes outside of the view of regulators, which does produce some problems in an economy when you can't regulate certain assets and you can't provide protections and liabilities and you can't manage those markets very well. Regulated exchanges have to have laws that, for the most part, promote fairness and prevent fraud. And even though, yes, we do have problems with our current systems now, if they didn't exist, I don't know how to describe it, but it would be like retail investors would just be robbed of everything that they owned. That's to show, like, yeah, none of the systems are perfect, but crypto markets have none of those things, right? None of the brokerage exchanges follow pretty much any rules. There's no guarantee that the order books you're looking at are correct. There's no guarantee that the trades that are being made are even real at any time. So similar to how we use dark pools, right? But the thing about dark pools, they have their own form of regulation lightly, and they have some tethering to the market, whereas crypto markets don't have any of these things, and are just basically there's no consumer protections, there's no fraud protections, there's no really way to monitor that.
But there is a way that the individual consumer who owns their Bitcoin and who is knowledgeable to get a cold wallet, they are able to verify their own cryptocurrency, the ownership of it, and where it is on the blockchain. And
Right, but we're talking about when trading in the exchanges
yeah,
as an
yeah,
asset.
yeah. I
So,
just want to clarify
they're not talking
that
about
part.
right. There's no, they're not talking about the blockchain here. They're talking about crypto as an asset. That's
Gotcha.
what's important. Like we're not, yeah, they're not regulating blockchain. No one can really regulate blockchain's technological advancements. We're talking about the asset because the only thing the FTC, the SEC, and the markets are concerned with is the actual asset class and the markets that exist for them. And as of Q4 in 2020, consumers reported losing over $82 million in crypto scams, which is 10 times greater than the same 6-month period last year. So I just found that interesting, even though most of those are on social media and people, doing things they shouldn't be doing. So clicking on links and staking Bitcoin in place that they shouldn't, or moving them to exchanges that aren't real, things like that. So, and the House Financial Services Committee recently, they formed a committee of 12 Democratic lawmakers to consider potential legislative changes aimed at digital assets. And why is that important? That's important because it doesn't matter where you stand. If a bunch of lawmakers decide to come down regulatorily, there's very little the average consumer can do. So we have to pay attention to that to see how that affects the markets themselves and the assets that you hold, right? And being 12 Democratic lawmakers is, they're very much against big tech. They're very much against losing any form of control and anything that is really foreign to them. So that's definitely a sign that regulatory actions could exist. So, and then the thing is that back in 2014, Janet Yellen, then the chairwoman of the Fed, had said that the Federal Reserve had no right to regulate cryptos, and they were correct. And it was just a regular asset, and that was back when the market was about $4 billion. It's now about almost $650 billion, and you have a lot more bigger players in here. So at the time, it was a very small market, so it really didn't seem like it needed any heavy regulation. But as the asset market itself gets bigger and bigger, there are more and more calls for more stringent regulation, or at least the ability to regulate it. And the difficulty here is really just how it works, right? Crypto is used not only as an asset, but it's used to buy things, sell things. It's big companies, small companies, individuals. So it's very difficult to figure out what regulatory agency would specifically govern the crypto assets. So that's kind of really been an internal debate that they've been having. And currently, the best way that people are proposing is that you have to bring in the engineers, the developers, which I completely agree with. You need to bring in these individuals to find ways to write the laws such that they pertain to the crypto market specifically and to those assets, so that you're dealing with them based not on precedent of previous law, but on the reality of how they're developed and how they're used now. So we may see new regulatory body that is designed specifically for this purpose, as opposed to necessarily trying to file them into one or a series of other regulatory bodies that already exist. So
I think it's going to be coming sooner than later, because once Robinhood IPOs, they are one that gives out these assets as a brokerage. They are a brokerage. So if they are giving out these assets, then they're going to have it under a specific regulatory rule, or else Robinhood could be like, oh, well, we got hacked, like these other hedge funds that these two brothers in, I don't know, South Africa, they had
oh yeah, they ran
millions of dollars, and they just say they got hacked, they dipped out, and they who knows where
they stole all that money. But then that's one of the problems. The SEC currently hasn't made clear any laws or rules about how brokerages can safely hold crypto assets that are deemed to be securities. So there is no really method of custody that's been defined. There isn't even really regulations on how this stuff is held. There literally are no regulations here. It was created without regulation. The markets really exist outside of regulation, and beyond being able to tax it, from the IRS being able to tax it, there really isn't too much going on there in terms of regulation, which as an asset class makes it very risky and very dangerous, because it kind of exists outside the ability to protect consumers, to protect market participants, to protect the broader market as a whole. So I think that what we may see is more regulatory action that does come down within the next, I would say, maybe year or so. We should expect, I think, bigger news based on this. And I think that I wouldn't be surprised if they were creating a special regulatory body that is designed specifically for crypto and other digital assets that are used in similar ways. So they literally say, all right, we're going to make a new regulatory body, because all the old regulatory bodies, they have strict frameworks. And crypto doesn't really fall into those strict frameworks because it kind of goes across multiple of them, and it's not really, they don't follow the same rules and patterns. So I would expect in the next year or two at least some announcements about a new regulatory body being formed specifically for this purpose. I can see that.
Interesting. Well, definitely more things that everybody sees this as like a potential for Bitcoin to drop, but the more rules that come about and regulations, this is what's gonna create hopefully a stability in the coin and less volatility in the long run. And I think that's always the goal when it comes to regulations. It's so that nobody's able to truly manipulate it on their own.
I mean, that's the thing. If retail ends up saying, hey, we don't even want to be in Bitcoin anymore because there's more regulations, well, guess who loves regulations? Large institutions, large investment firms, because the more stable it is, the more they'll buy up. So
Exactly.
it's just going to become more mainstream. And that's all it is. It's the continuation of making sure Bitcoin stays alive. And with more regulations becomes more derivatives and complex orders to fill and everything. Yeah, complex products. And I don't see it going away anytime soon. Though it might drop, I think it will stabilize somewhere. But as of right now, crypto is still over my head when it comes to prediction wise.
Yeah, I don't think the cryptos as assets will ever disappear. I mean, they exist. People pay for them. Markets exist, and they have a price. So they're real. They do exist. There is a market for them, and I consider them crypto assets. I just don't consider them cryptocurrency. But I agree. The regulations are not to destroy crypto. It is to try to find a way to make that market safer and protect consumers and kind of help find a series of conformity that allows this asset to be governed in a similar way to all the other assets. Because if you're going to have this big asset class in your market, but you have no way of regulating it, it makes it kind of hard to fit into the bigger picture and figure out policy when you have such a big asset class that you don't know how to govern. That bigger players might get involved in it. And how do you deal with things that occur with those bigger players down the line when these happen, when there's huge price fluctuations? But if something happens, how do you deal with it? How do you protect it? How do you regulate that?
Exactly.
So, yeah.
Yeah. Well, more to see that definitely in the future, and as more and more countries continue to try to adopt it, and I was reading that the U.S. might be the country that's closest to adopting and using it, and so I'm sure our banks and large institutions are going to be talking heavily about this.
Well, they already have digital coins in France, and
Tezos.
China's developing their own. Well, they're using the Tezos blockchain, but they made their own central bank digital. Like they're not using the Tezos coin; they're using the Tezos blockchain to create their own central bank digital currency, the CBDC. That's what the United States is currently talking about. China is also building their digital yuan, as well as El Salvador. El Salvador wants to mine crypto, so I don't know how that's.
Yeah, I saw their potential for yearly mining could be like over 500 million, which is like very impressive.
Right, that's why I say I think that we'll see the end of like coins like Bitcoin being mined in a lifetime, because when entire countries fund their operations, then you speed up the rate of production, right?
It makes perfect sense. Okay, let's go on to the next topic.
All right, so we have 5 minutes left here. Okay, let's do it quick. So oil companies, oil companies are ordered to help, or are currently at the process of the potential to be ordered to help clean up the Gulf. And what does that mean? So the plan is to retire all of the old wells in the Gulf of Mexico. Like there's hundreds of them that exist there that all the oil rigs and everybody were using to mine oil out of them. And as they age, they present issues, environmental issues. Companies don't want them anymore, so they sell them off. Right? They sell them off as part of going zero carbon emissions. Is kind of working your way past all these wells and getting rid of all these old assets. So they sell them to companies. The only problem is, what if those companies don't have the financial means to deal with that pipeline or to deal with that well? Well, the current thing is happening to Fieldwood Energy LLC, which a federal judge ruled that they could pass on hundreds of millions of dollars in environmental liabilities to prior owners and insurers of the wells as part of a reorganization plan. They're filing for bankruptcy, they're reorganizing their company, and they said, listen, we can't pay for this. We think that the owners of the original owners that sold them to us, that they should have to pitch in and help to do this. So Exxon, BP, Hess, Royal Dutch Shell, and a lot of the insurance companies in the space obviously objected to this. They said, no way, we don't want to spend money on this. And an appeal is still possible. So it's still very much in process. This is what's being discussed. But some estimates top $300 to $400 million of liability in terms of cost. Some estimates top $1 billion for some of these companies that would have to pay. Where insurance companies are going to pay a serious brunt of the payment because they issue what they call surety bonds. And surety bonds are really just ways of having insurance on a well or on its maintenance or on taking care of things. And you usually need them to actually run your operations, because you kind of have to say, if you want to do this huge operation with all this risk, you need to have some kind of way of ensuring that you're going to be able to cover any damages or work that needs to be done. So insurance companies issue these surety bonds and put this money on the market as insurance and say, listen, yeah, we're staking this money. It's here in case something happens, so you're safe. It's like having a driver's license and insurance. If you get into an accident, somebody can pay for it. And you don't just run someone through somebody's car and say, oh, well, go pay for it yourself, right? It's the same kind of thing. But one of the big kind of objections here from the insurers that, and some analysts are saying that, well, when this happens, if insurance companies start pulling their surety bonds from the markets because they don't want to risk themselves anymore because of this new legislation that may be passed, right, the new precedent that's formed in court cases, they wouldn't want to stake themselves and say, yeah, sure, I'll put out a surety bond, even though in reality, even if you sell that asset, I could wind up having to pay for it. So, and that could cause a problem because the oil and gas industry needs these surety bonds to exist. So that was kind of a little bit of a speculation there. I don't know, it might not go that far, but that's what they're talking about. There's definitely going to be some big conversations of like $8 billion up in the air about how to deal with the Gulf of Mexico, old oil wells, and whether or not the previous owners, the big companies that kind of made them and used them, should be a part of paying to have them cleaned up and paying to have to deal with the maintenance and the retiring of these things. So,
is this going to drive up oil prices in any way, possibly?
No.
Right,
I don't
cool.
know. The oil prices are going to be driven by OPEC production and refinery. This could, depending on who is affected, how the legislation goes, depending if the market hasn't already baked in these prices, if you see more definitive results come out, that more definitive rulings, that could affect stock prices and companies that have to take short-term hits. So investors may revalue some of those investments in the short term, to account for a decrease in cash flow or bigger cost of expenditures for dealing with these. But I don't think it affects the cost of oil. They're trying to retire these things anyway, clean them up and move past them. So.
Sounds like good news. Good news, and unfortunate that there's possible consequences when these things aren't kept up or regulated, and so.
Well, it's not even regulated. It's just that when they create them, they're fine, and then when they're done with them, they sell them to somebody and say it's your problem. But the reality is, well, if they can't deal with it and it creates environmental crises or creates big problems, well, that's all of our problem now. Gotcha. The taxpayer may have to come out and say, we have to fund a cleanup operation, which is bullshit. So if the option is between should I have to pay for it or should Exxon have to take some of their revenue and pay for it, Exxon should pay for a little bit.
Exactly.
Because this isn't just like we start a retail shop. It's like we made a well into the earth that mines resources out of it up to the surface. These things are a little more complicated. So I feel like just selling it off and saying it's not my problem in such a complex industry.
Careless.
Yeah, I don't think it's really gonna. I think they're going to find some liability. Maybe not as much as is now, but I think they will find some liabilities.
Well, on that note, let's take a quick break. We'll be right back. We'll cover up some supermarkets or stockpiling, and from there, we're also going to jump into crypto.
Welcome back, everybody. So our next topic that we are going to be discussing today is disappear from the chat. Is that supermarkets are stocking up inventory in anticipation of higher future prices. So what does that mean? Well, everything from sugar to frozen meat is being stockpiled. Anything that can last a long time. Why? Because executives are both anticipating some of the biggest price increases we've seen in a while, as well as suppliers are telling these companies, yeah, we're going to raise prices. So just a heads up, next month or two, you're going to start seeing higher costs to order all these things that you need to stock your shelves with. So, in addition to this, we're also seeing lots of demand, right? Grocery sales are up 15% in June compared to 2 years prior, and they're even up 0.5% from last year, which doesn't sound like much, but remember how much people were hoarding and buying to store in their houses. So we're definitely seeing an increase even above that. People are kind of going back, and demand is flexing here. We have elastic demand, and we're kind of seeing a surplus of it at the moment. And last year, they said like last year was consumers, this year's retail grocers. And they're doing this to keep their costs down and protect their margins. Because if you know that next month, the same things that you're going to buy are going to be worth, 10% more, and you can buy that product and it will not rot, right? It's non-perishable or it's freezable. It makes more sense to buy more of it now at a lower price, so that as you sell it over the next few, protecting your profits as much of the really expensive stuff, right? It makes sense. The same thing that happens in gas stations, but in that case, when there's any kind of volatility, they don't know what oil prices are going to be. They jack up their prices in the short term to cover themselves for sure in the short term. So as things work themselves out, they don't have to worry about it. But we're seeing some companies raising their inventory purchase by 15, 20, even 25%. And this is because we're seeing that, for instance, Spartan Nash is grocer stockpiling 20% more inventory than usual, but that's because over 100 of their suppliers notified them and said, we are going to be raising prices. So they're trying to find anything that's non-perishable, shelvable, long-term, frozen, things like that. They're trying to stock up as much as they can relative to their algorithms and their models for how much they need for their supply in their stores, to make sure they get it at lower prices now so they can protect their margins in the future, which is important because all these big chains, supermarkets, stuff like that, their margins aren't exactly gigantic, right? They don't operate at the highest margins in the world. So this is also a big logistics nightmare, because you have to figure out how much you have to keep, right? Are you keeping large amounts of wholesale supplies, which take up lots of space? What kinds of fresher or cleaner produce are you going to have, and how long can you store that for before it becomes useless and you can't sell it? And these shortages can be exacerbated, right? The normal supply chain shortages we're seeing now, they can be exacerbated by stockpiling if everyone's buying up in the market before it gets there. And what's interesting is grocers are on average only receiving about 80% of their orders, whereas opposed to 90% pre-pandemic. So what does that mean? That means they order a bunch of stuff, and it turns out that they couldn't fill the entire order because of supply chain issues or sourcing issues. And usually it's about 90%. Now it's about 80%, which again isn't crazy considering everything that's happening after the pandemic and the flexing of all this demand and the supply chain shortages, which are going to persist through at least this year. And analysts are saying maybe into the next 3 to 6 months into the next year, potentially in some markets. So don't be surprised when you hear about these things. We just think it's interesting. So if you're seeing that, and you're seeing, if you're wondering why there's a shortage in supply chain, but your grocers still have all the product, it's because they're stockpiling them. They're buying in advance. And anyone that owns these chains, that's what they're up to now. They're stockpiling inventory as a result to protect their margins into the future, which could prove to be a smart play. But some complications of this also include, in the event that prices decide to drop, and all of a sudden they bought all their goods, these prices, and all of a sudden the prices are lower, then they kind of screwed themselves because they paid more than they could have for these products, and they have to charge their consumers more or take bigger losses to keep their consumers happy. And a lot of retailers right now currently aren't jacking up their prices too much. They're trying to eat some of that cost to keep their consumers happy, but they're starting to push those prices out because eventually, you can't eat those those hits for too long. So definitely something interesting I was reading about today.
I mean, the United States is one of the largest import countries in the world. So when it comes to the exchange rate, even for these guys, when we're getting bananas from like another country, that kind of exchange rate coming over for the currency, they're taking a hit, and eventually it's going to hike up in our supermarket as well. So for supermarkets, they have to think about depreciation, shelf life, and inflation that's going to be coming up. It's all going to start taking a hit, especially when the bubble starts to burst. So we'll see supermarkets having to be more conscientious about their balance sheets and what products they're going to be bringing in, because it's all about to become a little bit more serious and more of a game for grocery stores to balance those sheets better and not take such huge hits.
Yeah, when you talk about like when they're stockpiling frozen goods, that immediately brings up the the question of, okay, now you have to pay for the storage of these goods. You have to pay for the electricity. You're going to have to pay for being able to hold these things. I wonder, I mean, their cost margins are going to definitely be eating it up.
Well,
It'll be interesting.
all these companies, one of their biggest assets is their supply chain logistics. So one of the things we did in business school is we had classes on the stuff you basically do forecasting. So they forecast how much they're going to need, how much they expect to need over the next few months, and they stockpile. And this is really for this year, right? They're not stockpiling years worth; they're stockpiling like 6 to 8 months.
2021.
So it is something to think about, the additional cost. But I think that they're factoring that into some of their models. They're trying to figure out how much they can stockpile, right, with still maintaining the ability to keep their warehouses powered and staffed. Like I don't think they're gonna push themselves out of bounds. They're trying to protect their margins by doing this.
Yeah.
So I feel like they've definitely planned for that. That way they can afford to keep the lights on. 3 months from now when they're ordering steak is like 30% more money, and they're like, shit, we have to charge consumers that amount of money. So
Makes sense.
yeah, helps them keep their prices low too. Because if you buy at lower prices, you can still afford to advertise at lower prices. So it keeps more consumers happy and coming in for more.
Okay, sounds good. Thank you, Wyatt. That was a lot of different topics we covered today when it came to politics, economics, and just the market in whole.
The good stuff, man.
Okay, let's
Whole picture.
jump right into Decentraland, where users can't drink, but they can buy blunts. I did not realize that was the title. I should have probably reviewed that a little harder. But this is definitely talking about the Ethereum powered music festival that we told you guys. It's called To the Moon, and what I want to do is just kind of highlight some of the top companies who are actually throwing this, and that's going to be Known Art, Bear NFT, and Illumino. Before we go a little bit further, what I want to show you is that in order to participate in anything in Decentraland, you're going to need the currency mana. Now, this is your first lesson. The way that you get mana is going to be through, I would say, a meta wallet, MetaMask. MetaMask is how you want to start this whole process. And let's just go over to MetaMask. I wasn't planning to show you guys this, but right now, Decentraland is connected to MetaMask, or you're able to make your own profile inside of that Decentraland world. Now, what I found is that I've made 2 profiles on its own in the world, and I lost them both. And it's because I don't know if just their login or how they store their data or whatever is going on in their server, it didn't like me. But the second option is creating your account and your profile through a MetaMask. And what you do is you download MetaMask, you set up your profile, you have all your login ready and set by the time. Now, the most secret thing about MetaMask is there's a secret seed phrase. It's going to be about 12, 13 words. That is what you want to keep secret. You want to write it down. You don't want to keep it on your computer. You want to have that ready, because that's going to be one of the safest and only ways to recover your account. Now, this is going to be like a super long password for you, but this also has it that you can log on to any MetaMask anywhere, any computer, access your wallet. But what this does is this connects your profile to your MetaMask wallet, and there's no, figuring out how am I going to pay for this. No, once your MetaMask wallet is connected to Decentraland, you will now be able to purchase mana, which is right here, Decentraland Mana, MANA is ticker name. You'll be able to purchase that and automatically be able to use it inside of Decentraland. Now, I want to show you guys this because earlier in the year, we're looking at Decentraland Mana being up at $5.55. This was a huge price jump, and all of these things also relate to NFTs, the purchase of parcels, so digital land, and just being able to interact inside of there. There's some games. There's even a casino inside of there where you're able to make money and do other crazy things. Honestly, there's so much to explore that we're probably going to be making a whole series on this, only because it's super interesting. But the reason I want to bring this up is that you're looking at, I believe, a good price point to buy in. When we hit, it's under $1 value compared to what it was 2 months ago. And if you're wanting to do things inside of Decentraland, currently everybody's looking at this as a discount price. This is your way to get in to maybe make your purchases, hype up your character, get some cool, skins on there. Who knows? There's so much to do, but right now you're still at a solid price to jump in, and who knows? It could be a nice investment if it jumps back up, past $1. But from there, let's just check out. You know what? I should probably pin myself to this. I think I've been looking at Wyatt this whole time.
Beautiful. I know.
What's up, guys? But yeah, let's just go ahead and check out the main artists. So, known origin. These 3 artists that I'm showing you, they all create and you're able to purchase NFTs from their marketplace. But I just want to show you guys just some of the art. In the music festival, they will be giving out NFTs. Now, these NFTs are going to be marked and they're going to be very, I want to say, unique to its festival. You better believe that these NFTs, I believe, are going to appreciate in value. You don't have to believe it. I believe that they have top 3 companies who are trying to produce the art for this music festival. The last one is Illumino, which has a really cool front screen. And that's actually, I think that's the only thing they have on here. Yeah, just their custom. Now, so these are going to be some of the NFT providers to look forward to. What I want to also show you is what is the value of NFTs. I know I've talked about it, that it's digital art, but did you know how much money they made in the first half of 2021? $2.47 billion. Billion.
Wow.
That is a lot of money. And if you're looking at NFTs and you're an artist or you're someone who's trying to mint your own art, there is a huge market for you. People who are just pretty much like nobodies are coming into the market, creating these really cool NFTs. There's also really lame ones. Like, to be honest, some of the most expensive ones I see as like pretty not impressive, but yet they're making so much money. What is it? That's
the world of art, Josh.
CryptoPunk, I think it's called. They all look like digital little like figurines, but those things, I just saw one, I think it sold for like 25 Ethereum or 250 Ethereum, something ridiculous. And it's just like, no, come on. But that's because other people are willing to purchase and make money off of these NFTs. So there is profit there. And so I just want to let you guys know, if you join this music festival, you could be jumping into this $2 billion pool. You could be making this, a $3 billion pool, and your NFT could be doubling, tripling, just because whoever wasn't at the music festival and they weren't listening to Random Rabbit did not know to jump on next Sunday and check out this music festival. And so you heard it here. If you guys are looking for like guest pass, I don't know how to do that, but we will start.
I can't help you, sorry.
We will continue covering this and just bringing light on how you guys can get involved.
Music party. I'm down.
Yeah, I think
We'll make our characters really quick.
That might be our Sunday fun day. We're going to be at the music festival. That'd be pretty dope. I think our computers will crash if we try filming this at the same time. So let's check out the next story. So I just want to highlight, there's another country who before was attempting to use Bitcoin, and then their country shut it down. The only thing is that in Nigeria, the banks, they didn't have much of a say whether people wanted to use Bitcoin and continue beyond what the banks were telling them. So the banks banned it, but that did not stop money flowing in. And that was because what they did is they were able to create these funds that people were able to give them money using Bitcoin. This allowed and showed money coming in, especially when their Nigerian money was decreasing in value. And so I just wanted to highlight that, because right now we do see other countries who are using it. And this kind of just tells you, it's not about the big banks, it's not about the large institutions, it's about the people. It's how you use it, it's how the economy gets restructured so that small communities are able to hold a I don't want to call it an asset, but to hold a form of money that they're able to use. And so I found this awesome. If you want to, check it out, this is, Nigeria using cryptocurrency. With that, that's it. That's it for crypto.
Thank you very much.
You guys subscribe. There's a whole crypto channel. We're going to be accumulating as many Decentraland videos. And if you guys have any questions, pop them in. I would love to know kind of what you guys are looking for. And maybe we'll all go party at a music festival together on Sunday. Whoop, whoop.
Doing it. So, really quick, AMC. We'll talk about AMC and GME really quick. AMC says it won't seek shareholder approval to issue more shares. So the CEO, Adam Aron, he said, it's no secret I think shareholders should authorize 25 million more AMC shares, but what you think is important to us? Many yes, many no. AMC does not want to proceed with such a split, so we're canceling the July vote on more shares and no more such requests in 2021. So that's huge. It's just saying that the CEO is not going to do a 25 million share offering and dilute the stock even more, because there's a following with these whole meme stocks, right? The whole premise of it is the large short interest of these stocks. So if there are more shares that are sold by the company, that dilutes the share and the potential for the share to go higher due to a short squeeze, because there's more shares put into the float, put into circulation, so more people can buy up, which means the shorted institutions and people will buy those up really quick, and then it's just less potential for a short squeeze. So he sees that, he knows that a lot of shareholders like retail don't want any more dissolution of these shares, and so he hears this, and this is why AMC went up today and then went down a little bit, and I think just ended up the day just barely below. So that's good news on AMC side. We could go to the GME, which is another one that took a hit today. By the way, for AMC, there are two more days, people. Either tomorrow, Wednesday, or Thursday. It's going to be pretty big days for AMC because they are still on the threshold list, which means that the short positions have to close their positions, right? So again, tomorrow and Thursday.
Wait,
does it
mean current shorts have to close, or does it mean there's just no new shorts that are allowed?
Well, it's been
If you put someone on the threshold list, does that mean that everyone who's shorting it is forced to buy out of their position?
Just the failed to delivers that have been failing to deliver for the past 5 days, and the threshold list, it has to be more than, I believe, 5% of shares outstanding. So it's okay. Something that is that's a pretty large number of shares, and to fail to deliver for, in total it's 13 days, but to get on that threshold list you have to just fail for 5 days straight consecutively, then you get put on that threshold list. So after 5 days you got 8 days to settle up completely, and we already know that it went on the list the 28th of June, right? So we are nearly 8 days there. So tomorrow it should be an interesting day. And I believe AMC has just been taking hits so that these shorts should be able to cover at a lower price. So today, AMC took a hit, even though it got good news. It went up 5% and went down 3.94% ending the day. That's because they need to shore up their position and they want to get it at a lower price. So of course they're going to try any which way to get that stock down. GameStop ended 1.61% today lower. So it went a little bit negative, but that's saying that it went down a whole 4 to 5% and then bounced back up at the end of the day. We've been seeing this.
But there's also something really important about GME. They finished Under 200.
They did. Surprisingly finished 46 cents, 44 cents, I'm sorry, under $200. So
I
that
wonder if
is,
people will take that as a bearish sign tomorrow, since 200 seemed to be a pretty good psychological floor.
and that's what they're going to try to do. They're going to try to make it that it's like, hey, you didn't finish over 200. Wow.
No, I just mean the
You're
general market.
losing.
Well, that's how market works, right? Support and resistance are generally psychological levels that we
Exactly.
can quantify in the market. So if you looked at 200 as a floor over the last month, roughly, since it hit 320, then over the last month, it's basically been hovering above 200, kind of up and down. I wonder if that'll be the aftermarket, it's pretty flat, but I would
I
wonder.
love how in the market I was watching the minute by minute ticker, the candlesticks, and once it hit, it was going up. It was at a nice trend. It hit 198.99, and it went from a volume of barely 1,000 to 20,000. Right when it hit 198.99, they didn't want them to pass up that threshold, and that's when it's like a wall. 198.99 was right here. They're like, you ain't getting past, and then it went lower, and that's just psychologically and
Could also be
manipulatively what's
algorithms.
happening
They
the
could also have
algorithms.
algorithms trading,
It's the algos.
which in that case would just be rules. So investors are marking that as a specific level. Then, if you see a lot of activity
So-
at those levels spontaneously, it's either a lot of lots of retail investors have the same idea, or a lot of algorithms are being targeted at those levels specifically because they're like, hey, if it bounces against this as a resistance, maybe we sell. Maybe this is what we looked at as our sell sign.
Yeah.
So
And
those are how we explain lots of volume too.
Aftermarket, it just got up to 199.97. It didn't even. It was so close to
still pretty
passing
flat.
that 200.
Right, I'm not saying it's
mark,
going to
but-
necessarily fall. I wonder if people
But yeah, it
or
could be
day
a
traders will look at this as a
psychological.
bearish signal, because if they look at 200 as a psychological support and then you go through that support, then in general, when you break through support, you generally see sustained movements down through the support as people
Mhm.
kind of reallocate and realign their position. So it'll be interesting. I wonder
Definitely.
if that'll be what
I
happens.
mean, at the same time, the volume has been at an all-time low as of recently. Today, a volume of 2.7 million. At least it was up from 2.3 million, but we know that that is a very low volume, especially for GameStop, where its average right now, after this decline over months, is now at 7.5 million volume for its average. So
Average over how long?
over, well, it should be a 12-month moving average for
If
average.
it's the rolling 12 months, then yeah.
Yeah. So it's still low comparative. I mean, at its high points, its volume was 190 million, so volume, and now it's been going down and going down and down. So we'll see. But the good news on GameStop is GameStop said it has leased a 530,000 square foot facility in Reno, Nevada, to expand in the west of the United States, better to get their products in one place and ship them out on the West Coast, along with their 700,000 square foot facility in York, Pennsylvania, to cover the East Coast. So they're expanding. They're trying to get more ground and get their facilities running at a higher pace, because they're just preparing for a better market flow for them.
I think this is what we call a Hail Mary, because it sounds like they're just beefing up for inventory of physical assets, but I don't think their physical asset business is really where they need to be putting.
Gonna be
You know,
digital
we'll-
assets.
We'll
I would
see.
honestly, I would even argue that Josh could get the point on this and say, yeah, they should just stay at fucking NFTs.
They are. They're very.
Nobody, I don't
they're
buy
getting
games
NFTs.
personally from GameStop anymore. I mean, everyone buys
No.
it from Xbox. My thing is they won't even have a Xbox One X. I think in the PlayStation don't have disc drives anymore. The PS5 might have one. Josh, does
Yeah.
the PS5 have a disc drive?
I think it does. Yeah.
Okay,
I
well,
mean,
the new Xbox, the Xbox One X.
I believe GameStop's going to go more into a tech company. So if you want to build a computer, they're going to have the chips. They're going to have everything from anything that's gaming. They're going to have, and that's what I believe they're expanding into. So we should be seeing some more guidance in their next hearing coming up on what their game plan is for expanding. And I think they're going to try going into technology, more of a tech sector than just being known for gaming. So we'll see how that goes. They got $1.1 billion on their last sharehold sell-off. So it should be interesting.
You mean last time they did a share distribution to increase the number of outstanding shares?
Yes, they
Yeah.
sold off approximately $1.1 billion worth of shares.
Wow.
So it was a good offering for them.
I mean, yeah, they
Share
should
offering.
definitely take this time to gain all the financing they're going to need, because I have my serious doubts. Oh, but then again, hey, the Blockbuster still exists. There's like 3 of them, so
You've seen
Yeah.
one? That's legendary.
they still exist.
Need-
They only have
No.
they have only like a few physical stores that still exist. Most of them no longer do, and most of it's only like online stuff, I think, in maintenance. But I think they kept like a few physical stores in honor of the at least one of them. I think they kept in honor of the original chain.
Hmm.
I don't think they completely got rid of all of them. I think there's still at least one Blockbuster.
So I looked it up. PlayStation has 2 different types. One's for digital video games only, and the other one you pay a little bit more and you're able to use disc.
Yeah, number of locations, 1 remaining in Bend, Oregon. Yes, I was right. They have 1 physical Blockbuster left in Oregon. But yeah, no, I like that. I mean, I like the PS5 like that, but I feel like eventually they'll also move to online, because you'll have like
Everything's online right now, like as in like
just
streamable.
for games. It just makes sense, because when you play a game, if you have to keep putting in the damn disc every single time you want to change it, it becomes kind of like agitating. You just switch between 2-3 games. That's what Call of Duty does. That's what Call of Duty, you download all the games and you can jump between them, right? You can jump between, what is it, Warzone, Modern Warfare, and
Zombies?
Black Ops. So like the 3 main franchises they have now are combined across the same platform. So you can handle all of your updates from there. You can handle moving between all 3 games from there, and they keep the whole franchise in one place, which I think is, plus most games are being remastered and pumped out again online.
Yep.
So but we'll see.
Yeah,
We'll see if
see.
GameStop can turn themselves around, but they got a lot of competition.
A lot of competition, but it should be interesting for them in the future. Now, are you guys ready for the topic that we've all been waiting for weeks and weeks and weeks? But when it finally came out, we were kind of really disappointed. UFO Pentagon Report.
Is
Being
this
honest,
the
I
actual
didn't
report?
This is the actual report. This is the unclassified version. The New York Post got the classified version early in June, and they released it. And of course, their rhetoric was again very anticlimactic. But with this one, still anticlimactic. So the UAPTF, which is the Unidentified Aerial Phenomenon Task Force, wow, that's a mouthful. The limited amount of high-quality reporting on unidentified aerial phenomenon hampers our ability to draw firm conclusions about the nature of intent of UAPs. So, number one, that's just saying, hey, they're there. We don't even know what their intent is. Okay, so that was the first thing that came out in the report. Second, they're only looking at reports from 2004 to 2021, and that's what they're showing us right here. It's only what was brought up and brought together by the task force, even though like all these other guys that are UFO fanatics are just like, hey, dude, I've been working on this since the 1900s, like 1990s and stuff. So I don't believe they even got that information from, like, I don't know if Area 51 was ever a really big thing and they had UFO stuff there. I doubt the task force for the UAPs ever got their hands on that kind of information of like alien spaceships and whatnot. But as we go on through this report, we're just getting more and more sad. But 144 reports originated, with 80 reports involved observation with multiple sensors. So that's a high point. At least they're admitting that there were sensors and everything when it came to the observation of these UAPs, UFOs, and they're admitting it. So they say in a limited number of incidents, UAP reportedly appeared to exhibit unusual flight characteristics. These observations could be the result of sensor error, spoofing, or observer misperception and require additional rigorous analysis.
BS.
So
it sounds cute.
I mean, that's the thing. Even after all this, they're looking at the patterns, the observational patterns of these UAPs regarding the shape, size, and in particular their propulsion system. They say most of these maneuvers go against physics, and if they were to go as quickly as this and then stop right there, everyone inside would be little mush. Right there, yeah, it's completely defying the laws of physics and momentum. Conservation of energy just doesn't exist for them. So some UAPs appear to remain stationary in wind's loft, move against the wind, maneuver abruptly, or move at considerable speeds without discernible means of propulsion. They might be using antimatter.
Yeah, what that means is that they can't trace like the exhaust coming out the back pipe and say like, hey, here's a heat signature coming from it. That's really, really interesting because all of our technology has a clear indication that heat is being generated, and that's usually what most radars are using. But this one,
does the United States stealth tech do that?
The stealth one, that's a good
question.
There should I believe they fly too high.
There's an expulsion of energy. That's what it is. You can see that with anything, there has to be an expulsion of energy.
But let's look at this video. So this is one of the videos that is out from the Pentagon. And so here we're able to see that they're trying to,
lock on.
Yeah, trying to lock onto this. Now a spokesperson's talking. But what it is they're trying to, I wonder if I could get a better video, but they have their equipment and they've locked directly onto this object, and this object, I believe, is moving at a considerable rate, or it was even hard. I think they had to manually track it.
Yeah, they're trying to just pin it and then lock onto it. Once it's locked on, then the system's able to keep track of it.
They made these a little blurrier on CNN. That's interesting. The videos that I saw were pretty clear.
I mean, it's interesting that in a small number of cases, military aircraft systems processed radio frequency energy associated with UAP sightings. So I don't know if they're trying to give us some sort of radio frequency to latch onto. I don't know what they got from that RF frequency. It just sounds interesting. I would like to hear that radio frequency. But what the government is telling us right now, the Pentagon is just like, well, UAPs clearly pose a safety of flight issue and may pose a challenge to U.S. national security. They can't catch them. That's number one. They don't know what they are. Or they do, and they're just not telling us. But honestly, with their advanced technology and being able to outmaneuver fighter jets and everything that are going ridiculous speeds, if they haven't attacked yet, I don't think they're here to actually attack. I don't know. That's a huge if.
That assumes that what you're seeing is real.
And
so that's where, interesting stuff that they mentioned. They said that...
But the Pentagon actually admits that there are these UFOs. Well,
what's the quickest way to get people to not believe in that and that they're real? Is to say, oh yeah, they're here. We just don't know anything about them. We'll give in. But because we've never seen them before outside of
also brushing this off really hard. Do you feel like this has really been blown out of proportion? They're trying to just sneak this in and make it hey, everything's normal.
Well, but they didn't have an entire 60 minutes with the heads of research and people who worked on these programs who spoke in detail about
60 minutes?
That's still on.
People. Millions of people. We maybe not as many young people do.
Not many young people or anything.
So what they're saying is that they confirmed that these weren't foreign powers and that they weren't a threat to us. Well,
how do they know? How do they know?
Exactly. They're like, we can confirm this isn't Russia. We can confirm this isn't China. But like how? They're like we can't identify them. We haven't even gotten close enough to them. But they were able to say, but we can tell you that they are physical objects. They use the terminology physical, which I believe when you questioned it, it's like, oh well, how do we know it's real? Absolutely. How do we know that it's physical? And so,
I mean, how do I know that the videos that the government gave us aren't doctored? Because the government would have the greatest capability to doctor and create conspiracies in the world.
I mean, it's true, but why would they have hid it for so long? And now finally they're just like, well, everyone has a phone and these things have been coming out more and more frequently. I think it's time for us to finally just tell people with their little tinfoil hats that you're not crazy and that these things actually exist.
Or the government is trying to do I think the CIA is doing a thought experiment that like they've done before and trying to see how many people believe what they're actually seeing. Because all the people who do track UFOs throughout their entire lives, most of those groups, they deny that these things are real. They say this isn't real, this is bullshit.
Really? I would love to see that.
You see a lot of these people talking about that they don't necessarily look at this as like compelling evidence, because they're basically saying like we've seen before, and you're saying you don't have any information on them. They don't believe the government, or they think that the government is lying.
They don't believe that the government...
Why would the government give us that information anyway?
That's because their hands were forced over the past years to be like, hey, we know these UFOs exist. We're going to throw millions of dollars at it and just call them the UAP task force. That's number one, to say like, hey, if anything worthwhile to investigate, we have to throw at least millions at it. And they were thrown millions to investigate this stuff. That's number one. It took years for them to actually bring about this kind of report.
But they only...
According to the government, they spent millions of dollars. And according to you, you say that there's been this big demand, right? So where are all those people now? All the people that were forcing them and saying, we demand answers. Here's the answers. How come I'm not seeing
more
tons of people talking about how disappointed they are?
Well, because they're saying that out of the 144 reports, they only actually analyzed one. And
wait, so I'm not saying about that.
To the reports, which was whack.
What I mean is, like, I have a sneaking suspicion that this isn't real. That it's not actually, that it's not real. The government is doing something or trying to release information improperly or play a game. Because they had all these, they went on TV and they did, like, whenever the government just is like, we'll love to give you tons of classified information. We love to do interviews. That's how I know that something's wrong. Like, the government doesn't go ahead and just throw classified information. Like, okay, I guess we'll just give you all of our classified information. We had to have a guy become a traitor to the country to reveal that the government was spying on everything that we do and collecting metadata on all of our devices and all of our communications around the world. Yeah. So when I think about that, I'm like, then the government's just gonna come out and say, yeah, here's all this information. We don't know anything. Here's a bunch of stuff. Until I see any real compelling evidence, this could just be propaganda.
I mean, it could all be propaganda, but at the same time,
it's crazy that it's even being acknowledged, or that we're even talking about it, or that the Pentagon even had to feel like they had to come out with something. But we are at a minute. Do we want to go on break and continue, or should we save this topic for another time and maybe ask the audience if they want to ask us questions to further this discussion?
Whatever you guys want to do.
Well, lastly, within the last 7 seconds, inconclusive proof of extraterrestrials. That's about it. 3, 2, 1.
Not sure how he did that, but let's come right back and
oh, we are.
Okay, so if you guys have any questions about UFOs, or you guys just really want us to keep dumping on them, let us know. I love watching UFO videos. I think a lot of them could be illusional and visually, your eyes can lie to you in a thousand different ways. And what do they say? Believe nothing that you see, half of what you hear, and all that you know.
None of what you hear and half of what you see. But the thing is, like, when you look at movies that are created and you see the special effects, and you're like, holy shit. And then the government puts out some like fuzzy videos and they're like, those are real.
This is the real stuff. Yeah. I mean, stuff like that. And like CGI and created by NASA. And
like everything we know
yes.
about this is just like the government put out a couple of seconds of tape. And then they put out a report that says, we know nothing. You know nothing more than you knew before, except one thing. U.S. government's on it. Don't worry,
we're here to help.
Taking care of it. To me, that's
red flags.
This document is worthless. There's no information. There's no evidence either way, shape, or form.
Mm-hmm.
It was a propaganda scheme. The government wanted to put this out for some reason that we'll never know. And until there's any real evidence, this does nothing. And that's why nobody cared to talk about it. Because
there's zero effect on us. Zero effect on anybody.
Like this report is meant to create speculation. And when things are created to create speculation, it's generally because it's a sleight of hand. Everybody, that we want you to try to talk about this because we might not want you to pay attention to something else. And odds are we wouldn't even know what that is. In fact, this may have happened as a result of what happened when everybody wanted to storm Area 51. So they were like, fine, let's just throw them a fucking bone. And this is worthless. This is 9 pages of literally saying nothing.
So let me just throw out something ridiculous that I read. You guys ready for this? So this has zero scientific backing behind it, but people are presuming that aliens can just be a evolutionary human from the future, as in the future we have evolved and changed how we look to such a way that when they come back in time, we see them as aliens. And so part of their argument was saying, what if we went back in time to the Neanderthals and how we looked and how we look different to them, they would kind of describe us in a similar way.
How do you deal with the time-breaking paradox of interacting with the species and changing the course of history?
That's a great question. I love that question,
like
actually.
If you went back in time and interacted with Neanderthals,
I love that question.
There's a chance we could erase most of humanity.
That's absolutely true. But then,
if you killed a Neanderthal, you could change the entire course of human history.
I mean, time paradoxes are
those
so
people
heavy. Like, that is such a beautiful topic. I'd love to talk about that. But like, honestly, there would be no way for us to know according to any type of time paradox, because we currently live it, experience it in real time, and not like, hey, yesterday elephants were grounded and then tomorrow we realize that, holy smokes, elephants are no longer grounded, they're flying, someone must have just messed with their past. Like, it's either it's always been for us or it never has been. So if there was any type of time disturbance, we'd never know, and we are currently just accepting whatever reality we're currently in, right?
What do you mean, like the Bernsteins?
Well, are you talking about like the Mandela effect?
Yep.
So the Mandela effect is where people, for example, believe if history was changed, there's little clues and segments. And so the Mandela effect is you yourself think and remember a certain memory in a certain way. And when you go back to research it, you realize that maybe the name, maybe some character, maybe some color image is different. But the weird part is that there's enough people, and internet is beautiful reason for this. There's enough people who agree, hey, you know what? I don't think that was what they were called back then when I was a child. I don't think they looked like that. I don't think this, and there's other Mandela. The Mandela effect is Mandela was said to have died, 30 years before he actually died. And so everybody says, I remember, the death of Mandela. And here, he pops up and he's still alive, and then he dies later. It's probably a terrible explanation.
Shared false memory phenomena.
Yeah. And so things like that, I believe, all play into some type of, if you may, and this is a very crude way of saying it, but a time dilation in which time and space was changed, but how we have recognition of it does not follow the rules of time and space and how it would affect us unless it was happening. See, that's the hard part. it'd be the only thing we know. You can't necessarily. The Mandela effect is a very interesting concept.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, if aliens were going back in time, and if for some reason we get to an evolutionary state where we want to come back to the past for whatever, I can't imagine why in the future we want to come back unless to, change, manipulate, or control the future. But if they're not interacting with us, or they're not worried about messing with their own future, those are other questions to take into effect as well. And so this is a whole rabbit hole in and of itself.
It could either be one, extraterrestrials, it could be another human civilization, or it could be extra dimensional aliens. So that's the thing. They come from space, they come from another dimension, or they've already been on the world, probably in the sea. I'd love to think of Atlantis, one of my favorite movies growing up. And they're just finally coming out with more advanced technology. So that's there's possibilities there.
Yeah, they already said they're not worried about aliens coming from outer space. They're more worried about interdimensional aliens. And so that was, I want to say it was released from the Pentagon, but I'd rather have the article in front of me that says it. But I remember them saying that, and I was just like, no way, this totally falls into all of my, random conspiracy theories of the what ifs and the, hey, that could be possible, and if this were true, then this would be true. So there is definitely one where if the government is interacting with interdimensional aliens, and that's a very broad term because technically they've already been here, they're just in a different dimension, then...
But we don't even know what those dimensions look like, or how that... We can only theorize what a fourth dimensional object looks like.
We can't. We don't understand other dimensions beyond this. Yeah, absolutely true.
I don't know.
To say that they can't interact with us, well, the equation said that they can, and so.
Well, the equations that are theoretical.
Whoa! Theory is law. And conspiracy theories.
And conspiracy theories. Idea, except there's one problem. There isn't a universal solution.
It's true. Well, string theory doesn't exist anymore. And so,
right, there's a reason for that.
Yeah, because M theory was wrong, but
the theory that was never proven was wrong.
There's so many theories that were never proven.
It's like saying 2 + 2 = 5 was never proven to be true,
and therefore it's wrong. See, still comes back to the same solution.
Now I have an interesting question.
Yes.
What happens when they actually, if ever it comes about, they say, "Oh, we believe in aliens. Aliens are here. They just made peace with us." What's your first reaction?
Demons.
Bullshit.
They have it on camera. They're all like, "Yeah, we come from like different world," and then or
you're gonna have to do better than the government. Yeah, when the government just goes onto every TV at once and says, "Hi, we're here with the leader of Gazorp over here, and we just want to let you all know that they're peaceful. There are aliens. We were just lying. So go about your day." Horseshit. That are you kidding me? That's never gonna be. That's never gonna be good enough.
So this is where I believe it will take an effect. We're currently destroying our world. If an alien civilization advanced enough to come in and were able to help us, that would be a huge leverage for them to then peacefully interact with our society, because now they look like problem solvers.
I feel like if an advanced species, right, exists out in the universe, there is no benefit to coming to Earth besides one, which is the basis of most of these movies, to mine the resources that the advanced society needs and no longer can produce or find. Because we don't go into the jungle and go and show our great respect for all the animals and love them and their habitats. We burn that shit down. We use those resources and we put those animals in a zoo and we kill the ones we don't need that are in our way. And then we create technologies to deal with the problem of an unstable environment later on. So I don't think any advanced society would come down here and be like, "We're just here to hang out with you guys." Yeah, you're literally tens of thousands of years ahead of us, maybe millions of years ahead of us in terms of evolution, and you're just gonna come hang out with what would be comparatively like bacteria.
Ants, yeah.
When
I
was the last time you
completely
hung out
agree.
with your backyard ants, Josh? You were just like, "What's up, guys? I'm here to
So
I'm here to change your life.
Yeah.
I'm here to bring you knowledge."
Here's a
but
cell phone. Here's a cell phone.
That's
Ants.
where I believe they're trying to
Flash.
determine if we're at the level of being able to peacefully interact with them.
There's
Like,
no way
would
anybody's
they be
looking
able
at us
to-
for
We don't
peace.
even know if we
cohabitate.
don't even know if they exist.
They
yet,
have to
we
know
Or if
human
we're
character.
able to
Come on,
cohabitate.
nobody-
We can't even cohabitate
Exactly.
with our own
Like,
humans.
we don't even know if we can communicate with these with what if we don't even know what that is. We don't know if it's a creature, and we don't know if we can even communicate with it, or if we even possess
You know,
the
if
ability
they have
to communicate
advanced
with it.
technology enough, as they do, like if we are able to make our own Google Translate, I promise you, they probably do have a way to learn our language or translate it or make it so that it's able to be translatable. I don't see that as a problem. You know, again, even with like, you know, what War of Worlds, how the aliens came about and they were just like, oh, they died because of disease. Let me tell you, if we got CRISPR, they got CRISPR. You know, they're
Well, that
able to
assumes that-
genetically modify themselves.
Well, that makes an assumption that that's just an advanced version of us. But we look at dolphins, and they're extremely intelligent creatures with their own form of language and their own form of abilities and their own form of organizational things that we still don't fully understand at all.
Actually,
can they
another
coexist
Exist on the
species.
same planet as us.
Another
And then- So what I'm
species
saying
is
exactly, so-
squid
so-
and octopus.
Right. And there's so many other species. So I guess if you're correct in saying, yeah, if the alien's just like a more advanced version of a humanoid, right, or a Homo
Just
erectus on a different
advanced
planet.
species. If
But
they're
if it's a
able
but that
to
species might be
understand
completely different.
mathematics and computers and everything like that, to be able to have a spaceship which is probably propelled through like gravitons or anti-gravity or antiparticles, you know, because they're using a sustainable resource that is just
Well, assumes they're
perpetual,
using a sustainable
you
resource.
know, and they're able to do all these ridiculous maneuvers that is just beyond our technological understanding. I believe that they're able to do what we can do and more. That's what it is.
How many languages do you think exist today on Earth that even though we have the ability to eradicate some cancers, we have no idea what they mean? We don't even know what the Mayan calendar was. We
Hey,
still don't
they
know what
just,
it was.
Yeah, I know. They just
And
made a circle,
that is a
and
primitive
they just
that is a
ended with
primitive
that circle.
species that didn't have any of the technology we have
Holy
today.
smokes. All right, I just looked it up. Do you guys have your guesses? It's way more than I even thought.
We don't know.
Like
The number
over
of languages
2,000
that are on Earth.
languages?
Oh, I have no idea. I'm
Like
just
over
guessing there are
1,000
probably thousands.
languages.
Yeah, see,
Thousands.
I was like, yeah, 300. No.
Thousands of
7,000 languages spoken in the world
Yeah.
today.
Yeah, and that's not even the ones that died off. So, I mean, it's
That's
So like,
impressive.
I mean, I guess it would just be because just be a leap that we would have the ability to communicate with us, because it would seem like just because they are more advanced than us, right, doesn't necessarily mean that we would be able to communicate or see eye to eye in any way, shape, or form. Their understanding, right? This is taking a huge assumption that all this stuff exists. If their understanding of how reality works and how, you know, resources work and population control works, assuming there even is a sizable population, then you would have to assume that all those things would line up. Otherwise, they might look at us as nothing. We might be food to them, Jeremy.
Yeah.
We could literally be just a wild animal. Our intelligence could be so low, right? We can't understand the way dogs talk. To us, it's just the same thing over and over again. Even though to dogs, they can understand by the tones and the voices and the body language, they can understand what's happening. We can communicate with each other. We can understand words. We've created language. But if the gap in knowledge and evolution is so great that it is the same comparable to, let's say, a human as that alien is to us, then there may be a barrier to understanding that is literally, even though we can't perceive what it is, they are so far advanced than us that we are literally like a sub creature to them. It's not
Interesting.
even possible for them to understand. If you look at that gap in knowledge and evolution, it could be very possible. We see that on our own planet.
I think like I was showing Josh this TV show Love, Death, Robots.
Oh, so good.
I've seen both seasons. They're really good.
Oh, so good.
Do you guys remember the one where it's like they open the freezer, these new people move into
Oh,
this
yeah,
house,
whole
they
world
open the
in there,
freezer and they go through the life cycle from like from the beginning and going through, and they have like they're building a society, and then they nuke themselves. They destroy their society. They close the refrigerator, the freezer door. They open it again, and now they're a primitive, high society. And that's where it's just like, okay, what if these aliens actually already went through that kind of understanding, and they would rather just seek knowledge and try to help out a new society?
Yeah, that's where they measure civilizations, and absolutely, everybody's saying is in order for us to get out of civilization 0 into civilization 1, we do have to pass the nuclear phase of us not killing ourselves.
Right, there's the great filters and that we have to pass through. But that assumes, when you say they want to just learn knowledge and help, that assumes that they have the same understanding of wanting knowledge and charity that we do. They've come to help a lowly species because they feel empathy for us. That assumes they have the capability of feeling empathy, because that assumes that they are inherently human. If we judge them based on our understanding, then we create human qualities within them, therefore giving ourselves a false sense of security that we can communicate, because that is just a more advanced version of us, when in reality, it could be a completely different thing. If on Earth, right, think about this. If on Earth, and you can watch the show The Expanse, which it talks about this, and it's an interesting idea. If you were on a planet that had a different composite of materials, or a different temperature, or a different distance, and life was able to form, you could just as easily see organic compounds like steel and iron creating organic life, as opposed to carbon, right? Depending on the conditions, you could see an entirely different set of rules for that ecosystem, right? Which could develop an entirely different set of species, which creates an entirely different set of evolution under entirely different sets of conditions. Meaning they could be completely polar opposites. They could be at a level of advancement that allows them to travel through space and time, because they understand, not only do they have an understanding, but they have the ability to use materials and organic compounds, maybe even some that we don't even know exist, in ways that we can't even fathom, which would therefore justify such a huge gap in evolution that we may literally be an ant in terms of our level of intelligence. It would be pointless for a being perhaps that's so different and so much more involved than us to even view it as anything more than a food supply or a planet that has resources that can be absorbed.
Or they see us as that we're getting pretty close to sustainable energy and advancements in technology, to the point where they're just like, hey, they're just right there. They just need a little bit more, and they could have sustainable energy, and they can now start developing.
Sustainable energy is just the first step. It doesn't solve most of our problems.
It is the first step, but in the I forgot the equation that has
the utilization of our star.
If we're able to just advance technology, it gives us more room to just advance technologically and as a society. So I mean, we can see it as a good thing, because the more technology comes around, the less people like to argue. That's why in the United States...
No. I completely disagree with that. I think that the creation of social media and technology has created the most divided populace on the planet that has ever existed in the last couple hundred years. Would you say the United States over the last 40 years has become closer as a unit or further as a unit? Think of it this way. Google can give you a web page.
There are more defined lines for people to choose a side. That's what I believe.
I think there's also a greater false knowledge.
Well, think of it this way. Google gives you pages, right? Facebook, they give you customized pages of the things you like to watch, the people you like to listen to, the ideas that you find comforting. You have AIs that are running inside of these companies, giving you customized versions of facts and realities that you want to see. You don't get exposure beyond that unless you go looking for it. Most people are being given a perspective of reality that fits their understanding of reality. We don't even have, Jeremy, we face this very interesting problem today, which is we don't agree on most facts. Almost everybody has their own interpretation of the facts of things that happen, even things that we can see and hear in real time. We have multiple versions of reality of what those facts are, not interpretations, the actual facts of what happened, who did it, when it occurred. We are so divided that if we can't agree on what facts are, how can we ever have unification? Because it doesn't matter what side you're on. If there's no common ground, there's no communication, no valid communication, right? No forward growing communication. If we, as a human race, truly want to get to this level of technological advancement, we need to do it in a stable and sustainable way. And to do that, we need to maximize the efficiency of all the human beings and resource on the planet. When when China and the United States raced to Mars, and they both put rovers on there, think of it this way: two countries just spent, I don't know how many tens of billions of dollars to do that. They did the same thing. It cost twice as much money. If the human race was less divided, we could work together to get to the same goal, pooling resources and only having to do it once. But we have to say, okay, competition breeds technological advancement, but that's only because we don't have the capability of actually working together towards a common goal.
So would you say that with more technology comes the better ability to be peaceful?
The technology
depends on the technology.
Technology is what caused Japan to be blown into.
Oh, we're
But
still
see,
like in a primitive
let's
race.
change the direction of that question, because it also depends on what people see as power.
So
Greater
that's
technology
why
is
we're
in
not-
weapons right now, and because they're seeing an advancement in trying to get an advantage over the other country, yeah, we're seeing more advancements in that direction. But if we're a complete utopian where, yeah, of course, all we wanted was renewable energy, yeah, we could have done it next year. Like we could have it done this year. Like it's all a matter of like, where do people see their power or their need for power or their lack of power, and they're going to be supplemented with technology.
And I like the growth of technology. Don't get me wrong. I think the technology is inherently a good thing. Right? Again, I think that most problems spawn from people, and technology doesn't solve the people problem. I don't care how advanced your technology is, unless your technology is killing off large amounts of society to create a very specified type of society, you are not solving the human problem. So you either have to get the humans to find a way to live together and come together, or you have to kill off most of them and keep only the most valuable to create the best society. There's only two. You can't have like, we make tons of technology and the people all diverge from each other at the same time, because then you see technology is not helping people. It's making people wealthy and helping people confirm legacies and helping them push the limits of the stars. But how much of today's technology has actually helped the human race and its problems, and how much damage, right, has been caused as a result of the erroneous use of this technology? And I'm not talking about weapons of mass destruction, right? Because for most cases, we haven't used weapons of mass destruction in quite a long time. Okay, we actually just use them to deter each other from using our own weapons of mass destruction. I have more nukes than you, so you shouldn't fire your nukes at me, and I won't fire my nukes at you. And we keep renewing them, and blowing them up in the old ordnance up in places we don't need them anymore. But I think that the problem with technology, again, is just, if we look at the technology's evolution as, if we have just lots of technology, we will solve all the problems. Our growth and uses of technology and the growth of the human population has led to most of the current problems that already exist in society, such as overfarming, overgrowing, overfishing. I watched a documentary that explained how the Earth is like think of the Earth as like a floating spaceship. And the environment of the Earth, the oceans, that's the life support. All the animals, those are the people who work in that life support system. And as we destroy it and we use up more and more of that land, we're actually killing off the life support system that actually keeps the planet alive as it flies through space to its destination. And what does that mean in this argument? Instability. We create technology and we make these advancements that then cause problems. We have to make new technology to fix. So it's, what point are we just creating more and more technology to fix the problems that we've created? Right? Are we fixing new problems, or are we just solving the problems we've made for ourselves?
It's a consumer mindset, and until we move away from gimme, 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 and this is what's best for everybody, we'd all have to become humanitarians, but that's not the case.
We need to find a way to encourage conversation so that people can work together, and we need to find a way. And people always invest in their technologies, and if they have the money and the capital, they will continue to invest and build these great and wonderful things. But I think saying that technology fundamentally, just having more of it, leads to a better society, I don't think that's necessarily true. I think that technology does help, because I do think that too much technology makes a lazy society. And if you have a society that's too lazy and too dependent on that technology, well, then you best hope that technology never fails you. How many people today know how to grow their own food, know how to take care of themselves, feed themselves, build shelters? How many people know how to actually survive? We say you don't need to know that because the system exists. Society is standing, technology is progressing, there is wealth, you don't need to worry about that anymore. And I think that we continually have generation after generation that becomes more and more dependent at earlier and earlier ages on this technology. They're born into, like, you're born at 4 years old and you've got a tablet because you want to play games. You're already in that technology sphere. You're learning how to interact with technology before you're learning how to interact, in some cases, with your own imagination.
It's true. And
in order to build this technology today, we had to do all of that hard evolution to get to this point. So I worry that we will evolve ourselves out of the efficient frontier and actually turn ourselves into a lazier society because we are losing the ability to actually think and do and produce in those ways.
Technology doesn't exist or stay alive without profit.
So, but I gotta go. You guys could keep going on this topic because this could go on for hours. Trust me, it's a nice philosophical topic that we could go on for a long time. But
let's just end the show altogether.
Enough.
So that was a good show. So with Random Rabbit, we will be posting this. Please add your questions into YouTube. Subscribe. We love hearing everybody's comments only because literally this is the world you live in, we live in. How it's going to be affected. Hopefully we can make a positive impact. And so with that, thank you guys for the Random Rabbit podcast. It was a blast. I love talking about UFOs. We could definitely rabbit hole this in a later time, maybe a Sunday fun day. But with that, peace out, guys. You guys have a great night. We'll see you guys tomorrow, 6:30 Pacific Standard Time, 9:30 Eastern Standard Time. And peace out. You guys have a great night.